You have to give some credit to the Mario RPGs, you really do. Since 1996, they've been doing their damnedest to make the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom and its many geographically identical derivatives seem like actual characters, rather than just a particular variant of understocked plastic figurines. The success of this franchise stems from a technique known as deconstruction, wherein you take a frivolous premise and suddenly endow it with uncharacteristically serious consequences. The application of this concept, along with genuinely committed story and character development, is what allowed Super Mario RPG, the Paper Mario trilogy, and the Mario Luigi series to simultaneously take jabs at the main series games while remaining true to their own style of gameplay. The next game in the lineage to maybe, possibly, actually not at all, receive this dubious honor is Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, a crossover in the same way that a movie cameo by an aging musical star could be considered a comeback tour. I describe it as such because, upon Luigi knocking over a mysterious book unleashing countless paper replicas of the denizens of the Mario universe, your party is given a new addition in the form of Paper Mario. Upon being made aware of this premise, you could be forgiven for speculating on the more pleasant possibilities. Perhaps we might meet up with previous Paper Mario characters and complete some quests on their behalf. Perhaps we might face off against some of the more memorable villains in a new environment. Or, at the very least, hear some sweet remixes. Well, as much as I enjoy being the bearer of bad news, I am here to regretfully inform you that no such possibility has made its way into the realm of real life. And that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Rather than partaking in any of these potentially fun and interesting ideas, what does Mario & Luigi Paper Jam do exactly? Absolutely nothing. Yep. Yeah, I know, bummer, right? As it turns out, Mario's pulp-based doppelganger is basically just an extension of the existing Mario & Luigi gameplay system rather than a meaningful addition to it, lounging about being functionally identical to his three-dimensional counterparts until some gimmick requires him to fold himself into something silly. And somebody messed up when a character's entire set of abilities can just as easily be executed by a sentient W4. Paper versions of existing enemies operate almost exactly like their non-paper counterparts, with generally the same attacks, only with the timing slightly changed. Which isn't adding any challenge, that just devalues your muscle memory. And all of the enemies now have buffed health to make up for the fact that you have 3 party members instead of 2. So everything takes more hits before dying, meaning that the only significant addition to the combat is that there's just a lot more of it. What there's a lot less of is literally everything else. Aside from being notably shorter, many of the gameplay mechanics have been inexplicably dropped, like Terrence Howard from the Iron Man movies. The lottery system is gone from the progression system, as is the badge system from the previous game, and it's supposed to be understood as a fundamental rule of game design that if you take something out, you need to put something else in its place. But who am I kidding? Of course there's new features. There's now a sprint mechanic, which you have to waste time charging for some reason. They brought back that useless trading card mechanic from Super Paper Mario, except now it's even worse because you have to fill a meter before you can use a card, and the effects wear off faster than Caitlyn Jenner's combined public attention. Also new to the game are so-called papercraft battles, in which massive cardboard effigies of Mario, Luigi, and assorted enemies are chucked into a tiny arena, spin fighter style, at the end of every other chapter, for what basically amounts to a part shitty boss fight, part shitty rhythm minigame. Oh, and speaking of shitty minigames, remember how in the previous Mario and Luigi games they would pop up every once in a while as some kind of gimmick to transition between levels? Well now, every single area is gated off by at least 2 of those dripping ear infections, all revolving around a central theme of collecting a certain number of paper toads whilst under the constraint of some gameplay gimmick, from time limits to a shitty version of Arkanoid to a fucking stealth minigame, in a fucking Mario and Luigi game. And of course, it's that infuriatingly terrible stealth mechanic where all the enemies have perfectly straight lines of sight, and if you get caught one time, you automatically lose and have to start the whole thing all over again. And these aren't just silly 100% completion side missions. These are required. You have to do these to proceed. Which is to say nothing of the indentured servitude these paper toads are put into after you supposedly rescue them. Hell, it's no wonder nearly half the toads in these minigames are actively fleeing you. I'm serious, the toadsploitation in this game has been ramped up to like middle passage levels, to the point where one particular instance features Mario and company actually herding them into a pen like cattle. Holy shit! So, beyond the uncomfortable prejudice undertones, Paper Jam offers very little in the form of new narrative direction. Apparently, having 2 instances of nearly every enemy in the game, including Bowser himself, has excluded the designers from coming up with literally anything new. There are 0 new support characters, 0 new enemies, 0 new bosses, and the locations follow the same grass, cave, beach, jungle, ice, fire pattern that's been traipsing about the series since New Super Mario Bros. Wii, all while being accompanied by a metric shit-ton of self-referential humor because the game is apparently so creatively bankrupt that the only thing it has left to make fun of is how creatively bankrupt it is. Meaning that Mario & Luigi Paper Jam is the exact same game Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door was mocking 12 goddamn years ago. So at this point, Paper Jam is the washed-up comedic celebrity, desperately staring at himself in the mirror, pointlessly attempting to reassure himself that he's still got it, while at the same time, having grown tired of his own act years ago, spites his audience one last time with a cheaply rendered, lazily executed, paint-by-numbers version of the good stuff, now so replicable in its mediocrity that it could just as easily be accomplished by someone else who, in a time long past, would have been considered significantly less qualified to do so. Actually, I think that's how the pitch for Super Mario Maker went. Anyways, Paper Jam is a bowl of cold grits, and if Nintendo decides at some point in the near future to release Super Mario and Luigi Maker, just remember that I fucking called it.